Get everyone's attention. I'd like to call the meeting to order. This is the regular board meeting for the Hidden Valley Lake Association for October the 10th. And starting, if you'd join me with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, next item is roll call, and we did have Director Wooster was with us at the earlier session, but he had a family issue that he had to go home and take care of with the power outage. Things were difficult, so he had to go take care of family stuff first. So that's why he's not here. But if Robin, you can call the remaining roll.
Reed Shears.
Here.
And Wiley Bowers.
Here.
Sue Story.
Present.
Steve Swanson.
Here.
Jeff Wooster absent.
Okay, next item is member comments. Your board of directors encourages comments on the policies, programs, and services of our association. However, personal criticisms and personal attacks are not allowed. Please observe proper decorum. Who would like to speak? Do we have any members? Like Ann.
Here I am again. Thank you. First of all, I want to repeat, there is nothing about stormwater drainage in this master plan, and that is horrible. It's dangerous, it's horrible. Anyway, Ann Hackett, 51313, and I want to reference the incorrect statements often repeated that you spoke of last meeting. I'd like to speak about the June 20th, 2000 letter from former Supervisor Ed Roby to HVLA and the CSD. It is my understanding that this letter is being used as justification for the reallocation of reserve funds from stormwater drainage culverts, because the culverts are now the county's responsibility while the levee is HVLA's responsibility. Supervisor Roby points out in his letter that the levee is part of the drainage facilities in HVL. If the reserve studies had used the term drainage facilities instead of culverts, then it would be absolutely correct to state, as I did, that building the Hartman takes money from the reserves for flooding. In any event, HVLA needs to set aside money in reserves for stormwater facilities. That is the levee also. During 2019 winter rains, the levee came close to being overtopped, potentially flooding hundreds of homes. According to Supervisor Roby's letter of 2000, there was a legal opinion rendered by a senior deputy county counsel on March 23rd, 1993, clarifying the stormwater drainage facilities. That means that this issue has been officially neglected for 26 years. It continues to damage homes and association property, for instance, the maintenance building and the Hartman building. This is quintessential kicking the can down the road. I have questions. Has the county been notified of their culvert responsibilities, or is this in dispute? Why does this letter contradict the master storm drainage plan when they were both written in the same year? According to the Browning Reserve Study, the Hartman building will draw down the reserves below 10% in the years 2022, 23, and 25. Given that, the maintenance building will be very likely be a special assessment we haven't been told about. What monies will be available for stormwater facilities?
Okay, please wrap.
Thank you. I'll finish it up afterwards. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any other member comments?
Elizabeth Montgomery, UBL 9532. I can find nothing in the surveys done in either 2016 or 2018 that shows that the HVLA membership supports an expensive rebuild of the Greenview with a greatly expanded footprint. In fact, I see quite the opposite. Tonight, I expect the board to take a highly unusual decision to proceed under their own authority with such a plan. It is clear to me that a majority of the board does not want to hold a vote to get membership approval. I hope that each of you four directors will state why you believe that foregoing such a membership vote is in the best interests of the association. The fact that you believe that you can legally do so is not a reason that it is the best choice. There are many benefits to demonstrating that you have the support you claim and no real downside that I can think of. So I put it to you, why would you deprive the membership of a say in this important decision? And I really hope that in addition to saying why you think this big, expensive building that's going to take things away from flood prevention, fire prevention, many other needs, is the best thing, that you also say why you think it's the best thing to not have a membership vote on it, and not just that you can, but why you think it's a good idea. I hope to hear that from each of you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Other member comments?
Doug Berman, 498, and 5 vacant lots, which are all fully paid for. I want to discuss some inaccuracies, Bruce, that you made in your president's report.
Okay, this is not a personal time here, so.
No,
we
it's
have
not
a
personal.
general
No, you made inaccurate statements in your president's report the last time, and I am discussing that. At the 1 o'clock, or rather the 1 hour point of the town hall meeting, a member said to you, asked a question, said legal precedents related to the Davis-Sterling Act clearly establish that a vote of the membership is required in the case of a capital improvement or significant upgrade to an amenity. Are you planning to allow a vote of the membership on this plan? If not, will you make public your legal justification for not doing so? You responded, "Are you done? Thank you. Next speaker." The member continued, "Do you want to answer that?" You replied, and this is a verbatim transcript, Bruce, "I've been told I shouldn't answer. Okay, well, if you would like me to do my brief answer, I'd be happy to. We have checked all aspects of this with our attorney, and all are completely compliant with Davis-Sterling and our bylaws. So that's how I would answer that." The member said, "Are you going to make that legal justification public?" You said, "We don't plan to at this time, no, but we have checked it all. We would not do any of this without checking with our attorney first." So that was what transpired at the town hall meeting. In your president's report, your last one, at the 30-minute and 40-second mark, you said, and this was under a topic of 5 inaccurate statements. At the town hall meeting, there was a question about citing our legal opinion, and I think my response was misunderstood. I mentioned that I could not answer that, and I didn't mean that attorneys said not to answer that. I meant that every time I tried to answer a question, I was being shouted down by the crowd, so I wasn't able to answer it for that reason. But I think it was misconstrued that the attorneys said not to answer. Well, there's some glaring inaccuracies in your comment there. For one thing, You said that you were shouted down and were unable to answer it. You did answer it. You did answer. I read it to you. I read it to you, Bruce. You did answer. Shall I read it again?
Okay, thank you. That's your time, and I'll be happy to respond. I'd be happy to respond. Please have a seat. Mr. Berman. Mr. Berman, please have a seat. Thank you. I'm happy to respond. You did actually answer your own question in that. My response at the town hall, when I was asked to give a response, I had previously tried to answer several questions, and I was shouted down by the crowd. People can look at the tape and decide this for themselves, but I was basically shouted down by the crowd, told not to answer the question and to give more time for the next people to speak. So I was trying to honor that and not answer. That's why I said that I could not answer, because
This was a specific exchange, and you did answer.
your time is up. Your time is up. Thank you. So people can look at the tape. They can see for themselves. I did later respond that we did have a legal opinion. Actually, that was going to be part of my president's report. We did reconsider that legal opinion, and we did publish it after that meeting out of concern to be transparent with the members and clarify it. So that letter has been since made available to the public. So
Who told you not to answer?
the crowd yelling at me told me not to answer. So I've answered it twice. People can look at, excuse me, everybody, please try to keep decorum. People can look at the video themselves. Any other members would like to speak? Okay. Oh, yes. Last one.
Nancy Foz, 6613. In view of our power shutoff, I want to congratulate all you guys for doing such a good job for us. And I have been down to the Greenview, and I think Dave has been down to the Greenview, and it is a damned madhouse down there. Everybody's drinking coffee, and all the seats are filled, and we're getting all kinds of people in there using the building for what it was intended to do. And I appreciate the power, the fact that we had to do a special assessment to get the generators, and they're working, and the plan is working. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Please, everybody. Okay, let's move along. Approval of the agenda. Does anyone have any agenda changes for our agenda today? Nope. Seeing none, we'll proceed. First is the president's report. No report this week. Thought of a new list of things to do before board meetings and before power outages. Iron your clothes for the board meeting a couple days ahead, besides vacuuming and doing laundry. But tonight I'd like to again welcome our new 3 directors. They'll be taking their seats in November at the general meeting on November 16th. Melody Polo Klein, Edith Lentz, and Ted Long. So I'm looking forward to working with all of them. Our general manager is working to set up an orientation to get everybody together and on the same speed right away. So we have that to look forward to. My second item was the legal opinion, and we've already covered that the legal opinion was sent out for everyone's information. And then the third is what Nancy just mentioned, the generators, that we're able to have this meeting tonight since we went ahead and got the generators. And I really want to thank, it was the staff that had the foresight to bring it to the board, and it's the staff that's done the full implementation. I think they've done a wonderful job. Randy, both of the Matts in particular, have done a great job. I was able to go down to the Greenview the other day and have breakfast when my power was out, and it was wonderful to see the activity down there and the community getting together. So thank you for our GM, and thank you for all the staff. And it's unfortunate that we have to have the power outages, but at least now we're prepared and we can have a little bit of semblance of usual life here, have the office open, have our security gates being properly manned, and all the rest. So with that, we'll move on with the agenda. The Secretary's report.
This is a summary for executive session, September 26, 2019. The meeting was called to order at 4:06 PM. Present were Directors Bashir, Story, Swanson, Wiley, and Wooster. Under member issues, the board listened to 2 member issues, interviewed Ken Dinsmore for the Covenants Committee. Prior to the open session, the board reviewed the Christmas tree bar. There were no other personal issues. The board heard 3 legal issues and voted to have GM Murphy release the Hartman Complex legal opinion letter to the members. The meeting was adjourned at 6:12 PM, and the next meeting was scheduled for this evening, October the 10th, 2019.
Okay, thank you, Sue. Treasurer's report. Steve, what do you have for us?
There's actually 2 items pertaining really to finance-type issues, one later on in the agenda. The only thing I'll say at this time, I'll save the other comments until we get to the final review of the budget and fee schedule, is that the Finance Committee met on Monday, had a robust discussion on the version 8 of the budget, also the fee schedule, as well as the contributions to the reserve, and more on that when we hit the next agenda item. That's all I've got.
Okay, no, we'll be hearing more about budgets, I'm sure. So, good. Next item is a staff report. General Manager Murphy.
Hi, I've got several things, and hopefully you can hear me. I know I sound like George Zimmer from the Men's Warehouse.
Barry White, maybe.
Maybe, yeah. I don't guarantee that I am George Zimmer, but one thing I wanted to point out, first of all, and the board may not realize this, and certainly most of our membership does not, but Charles Russ has been with the association for 25 years today. So I think we got him a cake earlier and sang happy birthday and offered parole, but he said he wants to stick around for at least another 25. So I think he deserves a round of applause.
Yeah. Charles, thank you.
So as was talked about a minute ago, I think the overwhelming sense of relief that we had that the generators actually worked as planned, unlike some other areas, some other communities around don't have this. So I believe Jim Freeman posted on my blog just a little while ago. I want to read this. I said, although some may feel that PG&E's decision to unplug most of our area was unnecessary as we enter the second full day of PG&E's public safety power shutdown, or whatever the second S is, more affectionately known as PSPS, I am happy to announce that Hidden Valley's investment in the 17, yes, 17, not 1 or 2, 17 new generators has worked out very well. Admittedly, we had a few minor glitches at the security gates, which were resolved today, but the main units at the Hartman Complex, the association offices, and irrigation pumps excuse me, on the 18th fairway are all operating as planned, unlike what is happening in Calistoga and other areas. I went through Calistoga at midnight, 1 o'clock last night. It was pitch black. And I don't know how much they spent, but they got a whole bank of generators and they're not working. The golf maintenance operation hasn't missed a beat. Hidden Valley Administration building is clicking right along as if everything was normal. The Greenview is smashing sales records for non-special event or holiday revenue, and it's serving as a community gathering place, which is exactly what an amenity is designed to do. I have seen posts on social media from members who freely admit that they have been opposed to spending money on the generators, but are very thankful now that we have them. I have seen our Hidden Valley Facebook photo of a relative newcomer to Hidden Valley who was able to set up his computers and conduct his business from a table at the Greenview that otherwise would have been impossible. I'm curious to hear some stories about the utility company imposed blackout, especially as it relates to your experience at the Greenview or other amenities. What worked and didn't work? Any suggestions for improvement for the next time? And I encourage you to email me at gm@hvla.com. Those of you also know we did a flash vote poll last weekend. Hopefully my voice will hold out. I also went to a Who concert last night, so the contributed to my hoarseness. That's why I was in Calistoga at 1 o'clock in the morning. There were 89, we had a total of 117 people sign up so far as of last weekend for flash vote. 89 participated in the poll, and it was about communication preferences. Jim did put in clear lines yesterday some of the results. If you want the actual full results, I can certainly make them available to you. Only a few people felt that we were terrible or bad. The majority felt that we were doing a good job. The number of respondents was low. We hope to get more people signed up. If you haven't signed up yet, shame on you. The papers are on the table in the lobby there. The more people we have, the more accurate the results are. The response rate gives us a plus or minus 10%, which is okay, but not, you know, you like to get in that 5% or less variance. 72.5% said they get that the best way for us to communicate is through the monthly Views magazine. 90% said through the weekly Clear Lines email. 80% said Nixle alerts. Skipping down. Social media, the Facebook page, 36%. We have actually 3 Facebook pages. I don't know if anybody realizes that, but we've got one for the restaurant, one for the golf course, and one for the administration. So I'm going to leave that for now. I'll probably have a few more comments when I get my voice back, but that's my report.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Save those for later. Next item is the consent agenda. We have 2 items on the consent agenda, the regular board meeting minutes of September 26th and the budget workshop minutes of September 19th. So anyone want to remove one or make a motion to approve them?
I'll make a motion that we approve the consent agenda.
I second that.
Okay. We have a motion to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor? Okay, the consent agenda is approved. Going on, we have committee and liaison reports. We have the ECC minutes of September 6th, safety and security minutes of September 10th, and the golf and green minutes of July 10th and August 7th. And in executive session, we also received the review of the last 3 covenants meeting minutes. So we found in those minutes that the chair has resigned from the covenants, and they've made a recommendation for a new chair, and we'll have that for board approval on the next agenda for the covenants committee. So while we're on committees, any of the liaisons have any comments, things they want to mention about their particular committees today? No? Okay. Committee appointments, we have none. Going on to old business. Adopt the proposed changes to the association rules and fine schedule pursuant to resolution 2019-24. And as you may be familiar, we've been working on rules and fines for about as long as I've been on the board, about 4 years. We've brought them to the members, published them, and for one reason or another, never quite finalized them. So a couple meetings ago, we approved a version to be published again. It's been published for member review. We've received a number of comments from the members about the rules and fines. Excuse me. And so today our goal is, our mission is to review the document and decide if this is the final document that we want to accept, and then if we do accept it, to approve the resolution to adopt it. So I'd like to do it in 2 parts first, rather than just approve the whole document. First, look through the document and see if there are any changes. There are a couple areas that were of a little bit of concern to me. I think generally not enough to stall or put other hurdles in the way of the process. It's been a long time that the process has been underway. It would be nice to complete the process. I think our current rules and fines are from 2014. So they do need to be updated. We did ask our attorney, good old attorney again, if we did make changes, which of those changes would require us to republish it to the members, and which changes would not require it to be republished. And Randy, you can help me on this, correct me maybe, but he said that if it's a new item that's in red that we've added, a new proposed item, that if we remove that, it doesn't require republishing. It's a suggested new thing that we're not going forward with. It wouldn't require republishing it, but any other substantial changes to the document would require it to be republished. And there's also a caveat that there were a few typos and spelling errors that he said those can easily be corrected without needing to be republished.
That's correct. And just, again, unlike on the fine schedule, I think it was the F that said it was a 300, it was supposed to be 300, but it said 30. Those kinds of things are what are referred to as scrivener's errors or transferring errors, typos that are not required to be, do not make it required to be republished.
Okay. So keeping that in mind, I would like to discuss the issue of chickens. One of the major changes to this new policy was to make some policy changes to allow up to 6 chicken hens per parcel. And that was the feeling of the board several years ago when this first came forward. And actually at that time, it was my feeling too. I like that we have kind of a country rural feel, and it seemed like that might be a good way to continue that rural feel. Since that time, we've got a lot of feedback from the members. Actually, a couple of the member comments have swayed me quite a bit. Talking with some of the other directors have also swayed my opinion a little bit on it, where I no longer support making those changes. So with that in mind, I would like to make a motion that we cross out 3 sections that have been added that refer to chickens on page 2 under definitions as farm animals. It defined include but are not limited to cows, pigs, goats, sheep, roosters, domestic turkeys, horses, mules, burros, and similar animals, and then it was added excluding chicken hens. So I motion that we exclude that additional excluding chicken hens language. Then on page 12.
Should we say including instead of saying excluding?
Just no mention about chicken hens at all. Just, it would end right at animals there. So that would be deleting something additional we had added. Then on page 12, under loose pets, the very last line is chicken hens must be contained to the owner's property. So since the intent is not to allow chicken hens, I would scratch that line as well. And then under the same page, under 606, unauthorized animals, the last sentence that was added is a maximum of 6 chicken hens may be kept or maintained per developed lot. So I believe by scratching those 3 lines, we can return to our original policy, which is consistent. If you look up the county zoning policy, it says that chickens are not allowed in our zoning area. I know we've gone through that before, but that would take away the chicken issue from the rules and fines.
And I'll second the motion.
Okay. So discussion about it. Steve, any
Well,
comments?
I'll go back to the comment, Bruce. My concern, if you just delete on page 2, item E, farm animals, you don't have anything about chickens on there. So someone might...
Right, but it's included but not limited to.
Right.
If we change that wording to including, that would be a change that we would have to republish, I believe.
I would disagree with that.
Oh, okay, well,
I did confirm, again, talking with legal, if we modify that and maybe just change roosters to chickens, period, it eliminates that problem. And then where, because it calls out roosters specifically, but not hens. A little further up.
Okay, well, as the maker of the motion, I would be agreeable to that rather than striking that. I would change excluding to including. Is that what you're saying?
Or either say including or else just say chickens, you know, so that those are listed. I think the only danger is then, okay, well, you know, what about monkeys, you know, or whatever somebody else is gonna, you know, but I think you need to say chickens on there somehow. That's kind of what you're saying, Randy, right?
Well, I'm willing to exclude it and say that it's including but not limited to, so you're not naming every animal, but if you want to
Well, the
specifically,
big one is chickens.
So,
It needs to
okay.
be on there, so,
so you're saying and chicken, you want to just end it and chicken hens.
yeah,
So it'd be
And
horses,
chickens.
mules, burros, similar animals, and chicken hens,
and chickens.
and chickens, period, okay. From your interpretation.
That's fine, and, you know, that just means roosters are doubly not allowed, you know, because the roosters are specifically called out, and roosters are chickens.
So any gender identity chicken, okay. Okay, any other comments with the other two parts? While he's doing that, maybe Sue, do you?
No, I don't know.
Okay. Okay, well, I just add that after reading member letters and all, one member made a good comment that you're really changing policy by trying to make a rule change, and it's really not the appropriate place in the rules to be changing major policy. So I tend to agree with that, and we are going to be rewriting our CCNRs hopefully come next year, and that would be a good area that we could address it again and more formally do it in a proper place in the CCNRs if there's a change. Also, I talked about being rural areas. We are in a rural area, but we have a lot of small lots, especially along the golf course in certain areas where there's just really not room to have the setback and the area that you need, I think, for chickens. Not all chicken keepers are good neighbors. That was part of the response that we got. We had a couple members that have problem chickens next to them and a tough time they're having with their neighbors. We already have a lot of rules that we try to enforce, and we're already struggling to enforce the rules that we have. You know, why do we want to add another layer to that right now that would be hard to enforce and hard to monitor? Potential of the fire risk of the chicken coops, that they attract predators, all those sort of things I think are good arguments. And one member had an idea that if we did want to allow chickens, why not develop an area in the equestrian center where we can have chicken coops that members can use and they can raise their chickens there where it's a more farm-friendly kind of setting. So something we can consider. So anyway, enough about that. So we have a motion to make those changes. We've had discussion. All those in favor of the motion? Okay. We've taken chickens out. Then in line with that, intentions, I have two other ones I wanted to bring up that I think maybe the language doesn't follow the intention of it. And the first is 2.03. And this is maybe another simple little correction.
Which gives the page number too.
Where did 2.03 go? It's pets in prohibited areas. It says pets are allowed on leash in all common areas except the following: association buildings, including adjacent patios and decks. And I wondered if we meant to say excluding. That I understand that they're not permitted in the buildings, but my understanding is they were permitted on the deck, such as the deck at Greenview, that if you bring your pet. So would that be one we can change including to excluding? Or maybe just take that whole comma, including adjacent patios?
I don't know what the intent was there, Charleston. That was, you helped craft that.
What's
so.
your thinking, Charles? You don't want pets on patios either?
Actually, this language, this language was actually taken from from a previously adopted policy by the board, the exact language.
Right, but we got a different board and we're looking at it with
Correct.
fresh
So I
eyes.
just mentioned that was part of the reason why that language is included. So if you read the actual statement, pets are allowed on leash in all common areas except the following, which would be association buildings, which would include adjacent patios and decks. So you could just take out including and just say association buildings and adjacent decks and patios.
But what if I have the other intent, I want them to be allowed on patios and decks?
Then that would be completely different then. If you want it to be excluded, so the adjacent decks and patios would be permissible, then yes, you would say excluding. Or you would just get rid of that
Or
language
just-
altogether. So it'd just be
say
inside
adjacent.
buildings.
Association buildings and just eliminate the language that said including.
Okay, well, how do my fellow board members, any pet lovers here that want to bring their pet on the deck, or am I the only one?
Which decks are you talking about?
Well, like Greenview in particular,
But they serve food and stuff out there. I mean,
Right.
it's like a restaurant kind of.
right, and
thing.
most restaurants allow pets out in their patio areas, and Greenview
Wait a
has
minute.
allowed pets in their patio area.
They
We have several members who do
Yes.
bring their pets.
I
Mr.
go
President,
by
the only thing, the only comment that I would make to caution the board is that the CCNRs, which would trump anything that this says, the CCNRs of the current ones are very clear that pets are not supposed to be in that particular area, period. Now, obviously, that's an opportunity for the board when the CCNR rewrite occurs to change that. But under the current CCNRs, the language is that pets are prohibited in that area. Hence the reason why the previous board used the specific language that you have here.
Okay, I'm not hearing a lot of support, so okay. In the next item, beaches, play equipment areas, volleyball courts, fishing piers, and designated swim areas. And one of the letter writers pointed out that we have make an exception for North Park. But we don't list that North Park pets are permitted,
That's correct, North Shore Park.
okay? So that is something we would have to add language, so maybe not at this time. And then, okay, moving on, 3-3.12. Operating prohibited vehicles. Operating any vehicle other than a motor vehicle or motorcycle license for public highway or street use is a Class D violation, except the following. Number D, off-highway, all-terrain, or utility task vehicle without written authorization from the association. Don't we mean with? Did I read that wrong? It says you're going to get a violation except the following if you're driving without a written authorization, but I think it really means if you're driving with a written authorization, you can do it.
The intention with this particular section, given the board's recent decision to allow a similar type vehicle to be permitted, is to prohibit those except under the circumstances that the board permits, or the association permits. So,
Right. So they're prohibited except if you have a written authorization.
correct.
Right. So I would say that the without should just say with. You're exempt from the violation if you have written authorization.
That's grammatically correct.
Right. So striking
It
the
should be
out part
with. It
makes
should be
sense. You
with.
me?
Oh, you're prohibited unless you have,
Right,
that's what it's
except
saying.
the
Those are the
following.
exceptions. So if you have a board approval, then you're not in violation.
Okay, that, everybody follow that? Makes sense, okay?
Yeah.
Okay, those were the only other two items I did. Anybody else have any items about the document itself? Okay, and then I guess we're ready to approve it. And we have a resolution in which to do it. Charles has written out a nice resolution with a lot of whereas. Now therefore be resolved that the board does hereby approve and amend the attached operating rules entitled Association Rules and Fine Schedule to be carried out in conjunction with the intent of Article 14 of the CCNRs by the General Manager, Director of Public Safety, or designee. So do I hear a motion to adopt Resolution 2019-24?
I make a motion that we adopt the proposed changes to the association rules and fine schedule pursuant to Resolution 2019-24.
I second that motion.
Excellent. Okay, any discussion?
No.
Steve, anything else? Anybody else? I think we've worked on this long enough. All those in favor of approving the rules and fines? Hallelujah.
Wow.
We have new rules and fines coming your way. Thank you, Charles.
Thank you. And I would like to just comment, Mr. President, that the association will post the cleaned up language that the board has decided on. Those will be posted in public areas on the bulletin boards within 15 days to ensure compliance with the civil code.
Okay, that's a good question. So how does this actually roll out and become effective now?
It becomes effective upon adoption. However, within 15 days under the civil code, we're required to post the entire language in prominent areas, specifically our bulletin board locations.
We'll get it on the website, right?
On the website, the board does have the option to direct staff to republish it in its entirety, and either by first-class mail, by reposting it in the views. But typically speaking, we just post the full language on the bulletin boards. We can put it on clear lines, and as the general manager stated, on our website. Okay.
Wonderful. Good.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Okay, next item is a bar to approve Amendment 6 and 7 to the Williams plus Patton contract, originally dated March 8, 2013, and amended on September 11, 2014.
So, yeah, this is obviously part of the Hartman replacement project. Williams and Patton is how I call it. And they agreed to revitalize or refresh this. They've already gotten, they're at 90%. We did determine that it was less expensive than it would be to hire a brand new architect and start over. This due to the fact that it's been, I think, 4 years since they worked on the plan. Obviously, hourly rates have gone up. One of their consultants that was originally part of the design team is no longer in business, so they had to find a new one. There were some additional costs associated with this. So this total of roughly $175,000 is to amend the contract that we had in place prior. That amount was $694,000, I believe, something close to that anyway, about half of which had been already spent. So that's the combined amount, and the amount 350 and 175, 525 roughly, is what we're talking about to finish the design, get it ready for construction, is less than the amount that was estimated in McMahon's plan by about $100,000, maybe $110,000. So we are doing our due diligence in finding, and just because we have a plan to spend that money, that's not me. I'm not doing anything. Anyway, we are doing our due diligence and trying to keep the cost down, and this is another example of being able to do that. So hopefully that means that our project comes in at about $7.6 million instead of $7.73. But nonetheless, it is recommended that you adopt or accept this contract amendment and allow us to re-engage with Williams and Patton so they can start the permit process with the county.
Okay, and so part of this is to pick up the permitting and the agency review that they were doing, continue the design development, prepare bid documents for when we go out to bid, and construction administration. Those are all under amendment number 6, and then under amendment number 7, establish interior design and establish furniture, fixtures, and accessory design and specifications. And now this is, what did Steve ask earlier about?
So not to exceed amount, yeah. And I will clarify that language with them. Certainly is the intent to be a T&M, a time and materials type of an agreement which is what they've been, it's not a flat, like this lump sum. It's intended to be, you do the work, you get paid for the work you do, not here's a bunch of money to do this work, even if it takes you less time.
Okay, so if the general contractor we end up with, or another contractor down the road ends up doing some of these, we're not billed by Williams Patton?
We're not double paying for things, right?
Okay. Anybody want to make a motion?
Sure, I'll make a motion that we approve Amendment Number 6 and Amendment Number 7 to the William and Patton contract dated March 8th, 2013. Amendment Number 5 dated September the 11th, 2014, as per the description in the item stated in the attached section below.
Okay, which I just had
You
read
reviewed
over.
it,
Okay, any discussion? Steve, any comments on it as our architect expert? Okay. Sue, any comments?
No.
Diane?
Looks like we're saving money, looks good.
Yeah, and I'm glad that we can continue with them and still
Yeah.
save money from the past work they've done, okay? All those in favor of the motion then, please say aye, raise your hand, okay? Amendment 6 and 7 are approved. Okay, going on, final budget review, fee schedule and reserve study. So back to our treasurer and Kim Smith.
So as I mentioned before, the Finance Committee met on this past Monday, and after much discussion, agreed on recommending the following: adopting the 2020 Manager's Budget version 8, that's the latest version, the proposed fee schedule, and the contribution amount to the reserve fund as shown on the version 8 budget. With that, Kim will kind of run us through a synopsis of the budget, fee schedule, and including the reserve contribution.
The board was emailed the budget and all the corresponding documents back on September 30th, and we'll just go through those, starting with the fee schedule and the changes to what was done. I can't see all the way over there. Starting at the beginning, and on the beginning of the proposed fee schedule, there was very few changes to the fee schedule. The first one was to the monthly rental at the Equestrian Center to go from $201 to $225 a month. The other is for the turnout to go from $189 to $200. The next item is the marina, going from $631 a year to $750 for a boat slip, and for a kayak slip from $248 to $300. The only additional changes in there were some of the items in the golf camps, and then removal of items that we don't have any longer. In addition, there were changes to the green fees of $3 across the board, with the exception of the junior golf. So the golf green fees increased by $3 each, with the exception of golf. And the rest of it is pretty insignificant, with the exception of the weed abatement admin fee was not noted, and it is noted on the fee schedule at $75 this year from $50 in the past. Any questions on the fee schedule?
Yes, I have a topic I want on the marina. We talked about the rental slips going up from $631 to $750, and Steve had mentioned a concern about that increase, and I thought about it going home. And right now, if you're a renter of a marina slip, you may be in a marina that's kind of floating around in our lake right now. And I understand we're still having difficulties getting it secured. reading Steve D'Agostini's report, it looks like maybe there's issues with the ramp. There's continuing issues that we're looking at resolving, but I wonder, do we want to raise the slip increase before we have a good slips for them? It seems like a little bit of a slap in the face that your boat's in a slip that's kind of floating. It sounds like some of the boats may be getting damaged currently, and yet we're going to ask you to pay 25% or whatever it is increase. So I guess it's for my fellow board members that I would motion that we would hold off on making that increase for another year until we're able to have a better marina for them.
Well, I would second that.
Yeah,
Okay.
you make a good point.
My only comment to that is, like I mentioned in the finance meeting, as airport manager for Glenn County, when you're at 100% occupancy, your rates are too low. And part of the reason why the dock is falling apart is because we don't have enough money. This is a $10 per month increase. I agree, percentage-wise, it's a lot, but we're talking a latte, maybe a latte and a half. And you know, it's calculated as part of our budget. The overall impact is negligible in the budget, but we are getting it fixed. And it's just taken us a while to get the contractor out there. We've reached out to another contractor. I haven't had conversation with Matt Woodard this afternoon, but I know he's had conversation with somebody. And we will be getting, you know, getting it taken care of. So it's the board's will. It's, again, this is staff recommendation.
What's your degree of confidence that by the new year that it'll be a secure working dock?
Well, it's either going to be secure or it's going to be clear at the other end of the lake, I think.
Can we charge more for a floating dock?
Yeah, right? Well, yeah, they do charge for that in Tahiti.
Okay.
I mean, maybe you can approve it with the understanding that if it's not fixed, then it stays at the current rate until such time as it is fixed.
How would we do that? Make a caveat that not to go into effect until...
Until it's secure, yeah. I mean, I would be comfortable with that.
Until you have a permanent fix, when you say secure.
By the end of the calendar year, yeah, that would be the goal.
Calendar year 19 or 20? Are you
19.
19.
Because this rates are for 20, so.
Right.
Yeah, this one, it wouldn't go into effect regardless until then.
Yeah, these are for fees beginning January 1st.
Yeah, no, so it wouldn't.
So if it's not in effect, I mean, if we don't have the dock repaired by the end of December, then doesn't go into effect until such time as it is repaired.
Okay, so I guess I would amend the motion that we hold off until we, in the general manager's opinion, we have 2 workable secure docks.
Or one really long one, yeah.
One really long one that's secure, okay?
I'll second that.
Any other comments on that? Steve kind of seconded it already, so.
Oh, sorry, thank you.
So all those in favor of going along with that? Okay. So once we have a good working dock, we'll give them the increase. I also had a question about the stables. You mentioned about the vacancy in the stables, yet I see the overall revenue went up. I know we increased the fees a little bit, so that's still taken into account that we'll get a little more revenue per horse, but we might have fewer horses, but we'll still come out ahead a little bit.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
And we might need to have a fee for chickens. We'll come back with that.
Yeah, we'll get back to that. Okay, anyone else have any other questions, comments, suggested changes, or we'll put the fees to bed, okay?
Okay.
Next.
The next would be the actual proposed budget. And if you'll pull out the summary sheet by account, we can go through what your differences are between version 7 and version 8.
This one.
So the difference between version 7 and version 8 on the assessments was just rounding, an issue with the assessments for a house at $2,700 a year and the lot at $2,052 for a monthly payment of $225 and $171 for the lots. So in the first three items, it was just a rounding on the lots and a percentage on what is charged on each of the finance charges and late fees. The other addition is the increase in revenue to the recovery of bad debt, and that is a staff increase of $20,000, and that is from the current adopted budget of 2019 of $150 to a total of $200 in 2020. So significant increase over the year, but a $20,000 increase between version 7 and version 8. Next increase between version 7 and version 8 is a $5,000 increase in the rules violations. We've had some staff changes to management in that department, and that department, Russ, is confident with the increase in revenues in the rules violations. Next item on the second page is your increase in the green fees, and that is the $3 increase on the fee schedule, amounted to a difference between version 7 and version 8 of the budget of $18,000. Increase in revenue on the marina slip rental is a total of $5,076. And that's between version 7 and version 8. Increase between 7 and version 8 is actually a negative effect of $5,724, and that was to adjust, we had it at full capacity, and that's unrealistic on the stables, so that was reduced. Turning to page 3, next significant difference is, our next difference is a difference in the wages on part-time, and that was an adjustment to Department 30 and Department 46, 30 being the pro shop, 46 being the pool, and that is the difference between opening at the pool or staying open at the pool until October 28th versus September, the end of the month, September. And that decrease resulted in a difference in payroll taxes and workman's comp. So those are the next two, a difference of $2,645 in payroll taxes and $2,220 in workers' comp insurance. Next is on the very bottom of the page is a difference in bad debt, and this is on the recommendation going with the Finance Committee and the board versus 7 versus 8 is to increase the bad debt to $900,000, and that is an increase of $270,000. Significant increase. There is no changes between version 7 and version 8 on page 4. Page 5, the differences on page 5 of the first 5 differences is the differences with the pool, and that is on the chemicals, the electricity, water, sewer, propane. All of those differences are noted there, and that is per the board request. Next is for contract services, a difference of $10,000 between version 7 and version 8, and that is just a decrease in what is in the actuals in Department 17 for this year and the previous years. And the adjustment to allocations on general maintenance resulted in a $44,010 increase in the budget. That is an offset number, so with the payroll in Department 60. And you'll see that on the next page, page 6 of 6. You'll see the exact same number as a negative number on the GL line 85, and that's 8,500 allocations of internal costs. Contingency changes. Contingency is my equalizing or adjusting line to get to a zero balance. So there was an additional $6,996 added to version 8 from version 7. Next difference is the decrease in transfers from reserves, and this was recommended by staff, and that is to change the amount being transferred to reserves from the $2,616,000 to $2,420,319. Had we not done that, the increase in assessments would have resulted in an additional $5 a month per parcel. I know most of you have gone to the Finance Committee meetings and kind of got the run through, and so I don't know if there are any additional questions or concerns.
We do have about almost $500,000 more contribution in 2020 to the reserve fund than we did the previous year.
Yes, this takes into the reserve study that was done for last year and approved last year. The board had asked for the assessments to stay at a level of $225 a month on a home, not to change the level of services, and to do that, and to increase also the assessments or the transfer into the reserves, to do everything that we needed to do and still come up with the balanced budget. It would have been, again, would have resulted in an additional $5. So staff reduced the number that was going into the reserve study, or the reserve fund.
It's important to note that it still does not, if you look at the extension of the reserve or the Browning study, it does not decrease the year-end balance in any future year to a dangerously low level.
Are you on to the reserve, or you're still on the budget?
I'm done with that, so we can move on to the reserve.
Well, let's, okay, yeah, let's do that. So this first, the reserve doesn't reflect that change to,
The version 3 update that you received, the 2009 update number 3,
okay.
to the reserves,
What page number?
page
is that?
83. It's page 47 or 43 in there, but it's actually, it says page 86 all the way through.
The amount that we said, we had reduced the contribution by $196,000
$414. Yes.
to $2,420,000. So that's the combination of the.
That's the combination of the current contribution and the $763,000 that is due back to the due back from the operating fund into the reserve fund. So the total being contributed to reserves is what is reflected on page 6 on the summary sheet for the balance of version 8 on page 6. The 2.420319 number. So if you look at the reserves, the $1.6 million number is the same number that was in 2018's draft for 2019's fiscal year, with the increase of the $5 per parcel instead of the $10 per parcel.
Any other particulars that we changed in the reserve study in the last?
On the last update, the items that happened that changed in the last update were the adjustments of the redundancies on the Hartman building, the design fees, and the demo costs were duplicated in there, and so they were removed. Other than that, there were very insignificant numbers that were changed, and those were by staff, and those were just moving projects forward or components, forward or backwards, depending on staff's recommendation. So, and that is something staff does on a quarterly basis.
Okay, any other questions about it from directors? Any motion to proceed? Yes. I'll make a motion that we advise staff to prepare a final budget for us based on our comments and what's been presented to us tonight.
I'll second that.
Okay. Discussion, Steve?
No, that's a recommendation of the finance committee.
Sue?
We've discussed it enough.
I'll just wait. Diane?
Yes, we discussed it plenty.
Okay, we've discussed it a lot. We've had a lot of meetings about it. I've been trying to get a handle on it and try to get a little bit of perspective. It's not the budget that I originally had hoped that we would see. It is a balanced budget. That's one thing that I wanted to see. But not being able to put quite as much in the reserve study was disappointing, but it's obvious now why we need to do that. And when I was trying to get a little perspective about 2020, why it is so tough financially, we have to look, as we just were talking, our loan payback, that $763,000 that normally would be going into our reserve fund is going to be going to pay back the legal cost of the Clark case. Then there's also the $1 an hour wage increase that we've been talking about, and that's really impacted our staff. A lot of our staff are minimum wage, and even those on salary get adjustments based on the minimum wage law. So I've been told that that cost to us is roughly about $400,000 this year.
Yeah, close. I mean, technically like 375, but
Okay, but it's a ballpark. So we've really had about 1.1 million, just those two items, the loan payback and this minimum wage increase, puts a heavy toll on our budget and where to come up from with that money. I'm proud of the staff in that looking at the actual assessment increases, it's still a big chunk, but it's $992,000, so it's not even the amount that we got hit by those two items. I'm a little disappointed when we look at the golf budget, where the subsidy increases. They've taken a second look. They've lowered the overall subsidy. I just wish that we were making more progress in that area. We've done a lot for the golf course, so we'll be looking in the future to see better progress. And, you know, just the overall, the failure of the past to save enough to increase the fees as they've been needed to maintain things. But we can't look back. We need to move ahead and do the best we can with the situation we've been given. And I think finally, I'm willing to give a little bit of the doubt to our general manager that this is his first budget cycle with us. He's done really well to get acquainted with our budgeting, to get really into it and to try to find solutions for us. And I trust that in the next year, he'll be able to increase that effort, or continue that effort, I should say, and find additional changes and have an even better looking budget in the future. So with that said, I guess we're ready to call the vote. Any other comments? Nope. Okay, all those in favor of approving the budget to go forward? Okay. Continue on with the budget.
Thank you.
Okay, moving along. Next item is new business. It's a bar to adopt the master plan and the building replacement project. In terms of the background, Facility Planning Committee has been working on this for the past year. I did a little bit of a history. It started in January of 2018 when we okayed a contract. Mike Rankin made the motion and Jack Wooster seconded to accept the McMahon Group's proposal. So that's when it started with McMahon Group. Bill McMahon himself came in February of 18 and gave a presentation on the facility planning services and the need and the role for a planning committee. In March, Director Spitzer motioned and Cobb seconded that we adopt a selection process and that each of the directors bring in candidates. We did that. We had on October 18th, we had a list of 13 candidates. December 13th of 18, we voted for the 8 members to serve on the committee. They had their first meeting in January of 19. Along the way in March of 19, the board voted to do the Hartman as a new building and to build it first. In August of 2019, they had the final meeting of facility planning where they invited all the other committees to have their members come, hear the presentation, and give feedback. Then, of course, we had the brochure printed and mailed to all the members, and Bill McMahon gave his presentation at the town hall. We've talked about that. We had opportunity for member feedback at the town hall. We've had it at the board meetings. We've set up a separate website where members could send in comments. The general managers distributed those comments to the directors for their review. We've also taken comments directly to our website. We've heard them at committee meetings, board meetings. So a lot has gone into this, and so basically now is the time for us to adopt it and use it as a guide and continue to move forward based on all that work and planning. So do I hear any motions?
Yes. In order to fulfill this fiduciary responsibility in using its best business judgment, the board has determined that it is in the best interest of the Hidden Valley Lake Association to adopt the master plan as developed by the Facility Planning Committee and the McMahon Group, which identifies the Hartman Building Replacement Project as the first priority. Furthermore, this plan will serve as the association's plan for amenities rejuvenation for the next 10 years.
Okay, second?
A second?
And second, okay. Any other discussion? Steve?
Yeah, I said I wasn't going to do this, but I can't.
Oh, I should have been.
I can't
Darn it.
resist. You all get a chance to prepare your comments. I've got a couple of comments too. And I'm going to express my frustration, over the last month or so. As you know, when you move into an HOA, you agree to abide by certain rules. As you also know, a board of directors for any corporation or any HOA is established to protect, among other things, shareholder value. In the case of an HOA, property value. In order to do this, many times the board of directors simply has to do what it believes is the right thing to do to protect and indeed enhance that shareholder value, even in the face of vocal opposition by some groups of shareholders or members. I agree it's too bad that the cost of this building is as high as it is. However, if the previous GMs and board of directors would have dealt with this 5 years ago, it was considerably less expensive then. Similarly, it was cheaper 5 years before that, before the problem. But the problem has always been kicked down the road by essentially the same group of people that always want to stop it. In my opinion, I repeat, in my opinion, in the 16 years I've lived here, I can arguably say that every GM and every board of directors has done very little to protect or enhance not only property values, but has impacted the quality of life in this community by kicking the can down the road on many things, causing suspicion, mistrust, second guessing, and much undue strife and divide in this community. I simply cite a few examples, again, my opinion. The community center, the pool, the Hartman complex, a fire-safe community, general property maintenance and parking of all sorts of vehicles anywhere on anybody's property, and the poster child of neglect, the lake. This board and now this GM is left holding the bag on previous inaction. It appears in this case that we are indeed responsible for the sins of our fathers. Now, for the first time in the 16 years that I have lived here, we have a board of directors that works together. We have a GM who works with the board. We have a team whose focus is on safety and security and protecting and enhancing property value. In the first 8 months of this year, this board has hired a new GM, fixed the pool, created a fire-wise community that, oh, by the way, has received commendations by Lake County Fire and FEMA, improved maintenance on one of our most expensive assets, the golf course, finalized a master plan including replacing the failing Hartman complex and addressing all the amenities, and oh yes, we're going to dredge the lake, which, by the way, the fix continues to evolve in ways that potentially could save the community money. As is asked in every election, are you better off today than you were 4 years ago? I borrow that phrase and ask you, are we a better community today than when you moved here? This board and our new GM is committed to making this a better place to live. So this is what I'm trying to defend and protect, and enhancing the property values of HPLA. So when you're up commenting on your things, please tell us how your view of what we should be doing in the community going forward with this plan improves and enhances the quality of life in this community and protects our property values. That's it.
Okay, thanks, Steve. Sue, hard to follow.
I ditto what he said. It was well said.
Yeah.
Absolutely ditto. You really laid it out there, Steve. I think we all feel the same, and I think we're all trying to do our best. I think we're all ethical, moral people here. We've given this all, I'm not going to cry, but so much thought. We put so much of our time in this, and it's just against a sea of whatever, you know, so. But I feel we're doing the right thing, or I wouldn't do it, so.
Okay, no, thank you. No, I
Sorry.
would second what Steve had to say. I think it was well said, so. Okay, with that, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay. We're adopting the master plan. Very good. That's the last item of business on our agenda, leaving us.
Bruce, I got my voice back a little bit. I had a couple more things I wanted to say.
Oh, okay. Perfect, okay.
So if I could, just take a few more minutes. A meet and greet for the new board members is scheduled in this room for Saturday, October 26th. So 2 weeks from Saturday, from 1 to 3 p.m. We plan on having some soft drinks and a few snacks, but it's opportunity. There I go, start talking, I start choking up again. But it's an opportunity to meet with the 3 new director-elects before they are seated. Board orientation that you referenced, we're targeting November 21st, which is a Thursday before Thanksgiving. We don't have a time for that yet, but I'm coordinating with legal and some other folks to do that. Don't forget that Dia de los Muertos is going to be on Friday, November 1st at the Greenview. Grateful Dead cover band will be there. My blog is live. I have a blog now on the association website. Talk to Jim if you want to know how to get there. But right now, I just added the one thing today, which is what I read at the beginning of the meeting about how great the Greenview and the amenity is, and the fact that the power's out and everybody's gathering there. but my views articles will be posted there. And then other random thoughts. I had a friend that used to call them random neural firings, and the idea just, things that stimulate my thoughts, and hopefully they will stimulate yours. Sediment removal process has been talked on a little bit. We got our second notification. I have a copy of it if anybody wants to see it, from the Central Valley Regional Water Quality Control Board, basically clearing that hurdle. We still have a few other things to do, but we're moving forward, and it looks good to start that project in the fall of next year. A reminder that Park Watch is also another new tool that we have for communicating, for the members to communicate with staff. And I wanted to announce that staff has decided to scale back the Christmas tree a little bit. It's going to be 20 foot instead of 26. It's going to be about half the cost. So we're going to have a nice big Christmas tree. But it's not going to be quite as big as what we originally discussed.
Everybody get that?
Yep.
And that's all I have for now.
Okay, good. With that final grumble, any member comments? Who would like to speak? Darla.
Hello, I'm Darla McSweeney, 3314. As you guys know, I'm on the Lake Committee, and we were not able to have our scheduled meeting this month, and I may not be able to make it to next month's meeting. I was wondering, I was looking at your sheet up there with all the numbers, and I saw nothing for minor improvements, but I kind of have a minor improvement for the lake. I was wondering if we might be able to get kayaks and rent them out next year, and I think that would be something nice to add to our lake and for amenities, and we can make a little bit of money, maybe to help cover for the docks that need to be replaced. But if I'm not here for next month's meeting, Bruce, you and Randy are generally there at the meeting. Could you bring that up as one of my requests? Sure. Okay, thanks.
Okay, thank you.
In your response, Steve, and what you spoke of, I didn't hear any mention of floods, no mention of the stormwater drainage facilities, which is so important. People's lives are being impacted by that. And once again, no one's doing anything. You have just pulled money from the reserves. What monies will be available for stormwater facilities once you have caused all of your reserves to go down below 10%? And I predict there will be a special assessment for the maintenance building that you probably know because it's due to be worked on in 2021. Each time I spoke with the county, they said they have nothing to do with the stormwater drainage facilities here in Hidden Valley. So what's the truth? It's all being obscured. There are climate emergencies that are at our doorsteps, as evidenced by the fires and the floods. Does the association plan to do nothing other than obscure this issue, all the while causing homeowners to suffer? While you have fine food, we have flash floods. Again, while you have fine food, we have flash floods. This impacts the entire community. The entire association is paying for this through the maintenance building, through the Hartman building. That's what's taking them down. And you don't want to deal with it or talk about it or address the issues. It's only obscured and neglected, and it's gross neglect. Not just a little bit of neglect. It's been going on for 26 years. Shame on you all.
All right, thank you. Next,
Hi, I want to speak about that
your
flood
name and
too.
UBL, please.
Janine Anderson, 51315. You all talk about property values going up, while ours are going down, and nothing is done about it. Now, are you happy with yourselves? I'm not happy with you guys. That's all.
Okay, thank you. Doug? Or Carol?
I would just like to say I think you guys have one of the hardest jobs in the world and you don't even get paid. I think you guys have one of the hardest jobs in the world and you don't even get paid, so I would like to commend you on your hard work. My comment has to do with the big billboards that we have out on Highway 29. We have two. And I know that there was a lot of hard work that went into what would go on to those billboards. My comment is, those things are very expensive. When somebody pays for advertising, they sell something. Our billboards say what we are, but if we're selling something, are we selling lots? Are we selling houses? Are we thumbing our nose at the rest of Lake County? I think the signs need to have a purpose, and the original purpose was, one of them was to bring people in from outside to play golf, and there was a silhouette of a golfer on the sign. So that's just my question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Hey, Doug?
Well, first, I would like to commend these two ladies who have spoken regarding the sewage situation and the drainage. You know, they should not have to be conducting a two-person crusade on this thing. As the board, you should be championing that cause. And I've noticed that these ladies come repeatedly, and you all aren't doing anything about it, and that is very much to your discredit. My other comment, Randy, if you would scroll that screen up a little bit. No, the other way, please. All right, we see there on this project, estimated financial impact and funding source, NA. Now that's either not applicable or not available. We know for a fact that it's at least 7.8 million and largely much more than that. Bruce, you did this bar. How can you leave that blank? How can you leave that blank when you are looking for the single largest expenditure in the history of HVLA, and you leave it blank for estimated financial impact and funding source? That's not okay. I also want to make comment regarding your letter, Bruce, an explanatory letter from the president. You have here saying that the only funding necessary will be a $10 a month fee for 3 years. And this is essentially the duck type situation. When something looks like a duck, walks like a duck, and quacks like a duck, it's probably a duck. What this is a special assessment, and it should be clearly labeled as such. To not label as such is simply not being accurate. Also, in that same area, you should have had mention of the assessment increases that will be required to fund this. Bruce, at the July meeting, you proposed a 13% increase. Sue, you seconded it. Everybody voted on that. That is material information for people to understand the cost to them that had to be included in there. It is an omission of material information, and it's grossly unacceptable. Steve, I would like to address your comment about people who criticize but don't have another solution. I have given my solution. Instead of 7.8 for the restaurant, I have proposed $3 million for the restaurant, $3 million for the community center, $1 million for the lake dredging, and $800,000 for the maintenance building. So that is an alternative solution that is much more affordable for this community. It is still 7 million.
No,
That's
please, no
exactly
comments.
correct.
Let 'em
That is exactly correct. And that's the point, but it resolves all the open issues. And that's what you all should be doing.
Okay, thank you. Please hold your comments. Thank you. Obviously, you didn't quite follow all the budget discussion today. We thought that there might need to be a $10 special assessment, not a special assessment, but an increase in the assessment. As you heard tonight, we're not doing that. That money's going into the operating cost. So the additional amount that we're proposing is $5 per member per month to go into the reserve fund. It will be as part of our regular assessment. There is no special assessment planned or anywhere in the plans for this. It's all done through our regular finances. So I would advise you to take a second look at the budget that's coming forward. So thank you. Next person, please.
Hi, my name is Christina. I'm UBL 2014. I'd like to know who the contractor is and what the building's going to be made of. We haven't yet determined who is the contractor.
That's correct.
When are we going to be notified of that?
Are you done with your
No,
comments?
I'm not.
I will answer when
Okay.
you're done.
Secondary is that where in the rules and regulations are there no blue tarps? None. Sherry Johnson told me that one. Thank you very much, Sherry. But I'm getting fined by that. And I was very impressed by Marie Walsh and Sherry Johnson and Deborah Fountaino taught me how to do a recall. You asked for it in July, you're getting it, Bruce.
All right, thanks for your comments.
They taught me well.
Next comment? Ben?
Ben Skerber, UBL 3128. Just a quick comment about the Hartman Building. It's something that you've heard me say before, and I just want to repeat it again. Hidden Valley Lake is a beautiful area. We have wonderful people, kind, friendly people. It's really, I love being here. It's wonderful. It is, however, in Lake County and not in Monterey County. And we have a fine golf course, but it's not Pebble Beach. Pebble Beach can afford to do anything they want. They can spend $100 million for a new facility, and it's not an issue. We have limited funds. We have $3.7 million in our reserves to rebuild the Hartman Building. I don't believe it needs to be increased in size by 50%. The concept of building a $7.6 now million facility with a $3.7 million in our bank account basically means we have to borrow $4 million. We borrowed $1.5 million from the reserves last year to pay the Clark case. We're going to borrow $4 million from the reserves to pay for the Hartman Building. I'm not sure that that is completely legal. It is a loan. It's not a loan through a bank, but you're taking money away from other applications. Thank you.
Okay, no, thank you for being on the finance. I would go over how the reserve study works a little more. So, next person, yes.
Cheryl Johnston, UBL 315. I just wanted to say that one of the numbers that you presented to the community was inaccurate for your $10 a month increase for 3 years. You're not taking into account that there's a 15% delinquency rate in this community, and you're promoting a figure that is not accurate. My second comment is that I came across a gentleman who lives down in the area that floods, and he told me the story one evening about what happened during the floods. He was at home with his children, and the waters came in, they flooded his home. He had to call the paramedics. I will get this gentleman and I will bring him to a meeting. He had to call the paramedics to come and carry his children out. Then he got swept away in the water. These are tragic these people are suffering from PTSD so bad that they have to gather their screws together so that they can create a life for themselves. And I don't know how you can build a building and sit in it while on a rainy evening sipping hot soup 2 miles away, and there are people getting washed away by Buda Creek. How can you even fathom that? I don't understand. Help me to understand that. And help me to understand how each one of you is going to sleep tonight thinking about that man and his children in this community. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Yes.
Okay, Kathy Emmer, 311100. Okay, so the water doesn't come from Buda Creek. The water comes down from Pinnacle. It comes down from even higher than Pinnacle. All of that water, it's like a watershed coming down from, I guess, up a Honey Hill and washing on down. And it accumulates and swirls about that neighborhood. And there's not a pump there adequate enough to clear that water. The pump pumps it into Buda Creek. But if Buda Creek's floodplain becomes too full some night, then the levee is going to be breached. And you're going to have what you had in New Orleans with Katrina, where you're going to have water pouring in to that area of Hidden Valley Lake. And Hidden Valley Lake is responsible for that levee. The CSD, who's part of Hidden Valley Lake, is responsible for the pump and the basin to catch that water. So if some night when you're sitting out at your Greenview, sipping your beer and having your hot soup, and it's raining cats and dogs, think about the fact that there might be an overflow of that levee if you don't address this and get a big, and I've been in New Orleans a few times, and there are great big pumps. And the one that you've got out there right now is inadequate for clearing that water fast enough. And then you just gotta hope that the floodplain on the other side of Buda Creek does not breach the levee like it did during Hurricane Katrina. So I have here a neighborhood, it's a printout. The average income per household here in Hidden Valley Lake, $74,000. Per individual, $28,000. I mean, these are not high numbers. And they also, I want to just let you know that the average age here, 43 years of age. We also have 28% have some college. So that's not a high, but that's 28% of the people here have some college. And we have 35% of the households that have children living in them. So this is not a country club place here. And that's why you won't put this to a vote, because you know from the town hall meeting that most of the people here do not want a bigger Greenview. A few people who want to host bigger golf tournaments want a larger Greenview. But most of the people who live here would like to have a community center, a community garden. So take that into consideration, because most of the people don't agree with you here.
Okay, thank you. Please, everyone, please, no comments. Come on, we're almost done. Any other last speakers? Going once, going twice? We will adjourn the meeting at 8:10. Thank you all for attending.